Good morning or afternoon to everybody. It depends on where you are in this moment. My name is Alberto. I'm one of the shareholders of a consultancy firm named Studiocom. But maybe some of you can know me as the export manager for Asia and Pacific to a wine valpolicella called Zime. So today we have a very super hot trend topic, which is a natural wine. Natural wine is definitely one of the most interesting wine phenomenon that we are living in this period, and no matter what is happening in the last few months on the global environment, still is something that everybody is very sensitive to. And probably even because of the COVID-19 pandemic, maybe people can be more sensitive to what is natural and what is not. So today we have a list of panelists which I absolutely adore because it's really phenomenal. We have, I can start introducing to everybody. We start with Alberto Cordero di Montezemolo, who is part of one of the definitely most historical family in the, let's say, Barolo area. And so he's, what is very interesting is to understand how he is carrying out this challenge to organic conversion in such a consolidated and traditional environment. So I'm really, I can't wait to hear from him about that. And then we have Ales Kristancic from Movia, from Slovenia. Ales is definitely a disruptive personality, very enthusiastic, and the other day about this event, it was super interesting to hear him. He's a kind of poet and artist. I absolutely adore him. And then we have Tartaglia, who is the winemaker of Puchang Vineyard. It's from China, and they produce wine in the desert. So can you imagine a more extreme environment to grow the wine? So it's he's gonna share his experience with us. It's gonna be fantastic. And then we go more on the trade side of this business because natural wine is also business, of course. And we will talk with Giulio Saverino from Bangkok and from the company About Eatery. So he has a restaurant and a wine bar specialized in organic, biodynamic, and natural wine in general. And then we talk to Natalie Wang from Vino-Joy News. So for those who followed our previous talk show, everybody loves her because she has a lot of stories, a lot of data, but everything put together in a very nice way, and it's absolutely a pleasure to hear her. So I want to pass the ball to the panelists who are the real VIP of this kind of event. So what I want to start with is to shed light on natural wine, because there is a lot of kind of confusion and around, even among professionals. So let's start making a clear difference of the meaning of natural. So how wine can be natural and how wine is not so natural. So I want to ask the first question to Alberto Cordero di Montezemolo, and why we can say that wine cannot be natural. Alberto, can you join us?
Yes, Alberto. So let's say that natural is a nice word, but as you said, it's probably not well identified by law, first of all, and secondary, everybody give his own interpretation of what natural is. So actually, first of all, we have to talk about what is considered and described legally organic and biodynamic. These are the only two things that we can actually say have a specific law in order to, with some rules and some specific things to describe. If we talk about natural wine, it's a little bit more complex because it's something much more wide, and generally speaking, everybody interprets natural what is made with a more sensitivity to what is the natural environment of one specific place, and less interaction between what we do in order to change the wine or the farming. Actually, I prefer to talk about my winery as artisanal wine because is for me it's the best way to identify this kind of wine, or especially for our winery. So artisanal because it's an art, and making an art doesn't mean that you don't do anything, but actually is exactly the opposite. You do everything, but everything that is made in order to have a final product that below that has a huge amount of skills and knowledge and capacity of the people that finally produce this wine.
So natural wine is still centered on the human being, so it's not just nature.
Is a mix of the two. No one is more important than the other one.
Exactly. And what can you add on top of this, Ales? Why natural wine is natural?
Because I think, if we do something, we are also natural, and for that I think that if let's say if the farmer do his job, that doesn't mean that this means that it's not natural. No, but the point, I think that we are all thinking in the same way, just with a little bit maybe some differences, and they are coming from maybe from the house, from the knowledge, from the tradition, from maybe the area, but I believe that if more, let's say like that, I believe that the man discovered wine. It was not his invention, and from that time when we are not anymore just gatherers, because that means that maybe you need to have luck to find the wine. We start to cultivate, and but we can cultivate in a way that the plant not became a machine which gives us grape. The plant has to remain the wild plant and has to give us like a gift the grapes. And if you think in that way, you come on a simply one conclusion, that the very important thing is that you have the whole system in a harmony, and then I believe that means that it's not natural.
Okay. And what about your opinion, Loris?
My opinion is pretty simple. I mean, wine, first we have to think about wine come from grape. Grape come from nature. Natural wine must be made with a huge love of nature. This is my point of view. So natural wine must be first eco-friendly, then no pesticide, no chemical, no additive, nothing is added, nothing is taken away from the grape. Basically must be pure. That's the point of view. So the natural wine must be made, have, in my opinion, with a very low intervention winemaking in both sides, wine making and wine growing.
So we can say that natural wine, to make natural wine, you add the talent of the winemaker, and you
keep the nature pure.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
the talent and the art, in my point of view, is keep the grape as much pure as you can.
Yeah, it's definitely a very romantic view. So it's this is no, but this is good. I mean, wine is a cultural product, so it's not just it's just a drink. I think that everybody in the among panelists and audience agree with this. You know, it's something that this is what makes it great to talk about, and you know, we can talk about forever about wine.
Because sometimes depend on the region where you are working, but you can take some risk, understand nature. If you understand nature, if you understand your vineyard, you can really make a wine with a very, very, very low intervention of winemaking. This is art. Even doing nothing is art, because
exactly.
This must very clear on the mind. Then you can, add sulfite, add yeast, but this is not natural. This is something made by human being to make some wine, to make some taste different, you know.
Yeah. And you said even doing nothing is something.
Doing nothing sometimes is harder than doing a lot of things. Is easier to make wine with a lot of chemical. Work in the field, work in the vineyard with the pesticide, blah blah, and everything added, chemical and everything.
Exactly.
But really doing nothing, or doing the lowest as possible to keep the taste of your grape must be the taste of your wine. If your wine tastes different from your grape, that's not natural wine.
Okay, this is a good point. This is a good point. And okay, so let's make again. Let's make clear what is like organic, because organic. So maybe Alberto, can you define somehow what is organic? And then I will ask Ales, so I anticipate that, and then I will ask what is biodynamic. So just to give some very clear point. Not to be too technical, but just provide a definition.
But let's say we already said that basically. So making organic wine, what we call biological bio, is basically making wine with grape, of course, farm in a biological way. So no pesticides, no herbicide. That's the basic, and any product, chemical products that are not natural. So you can of course use techniques and products and additives which are natural that you can easily find in the nature, but those are the only one available to make to farm your potato, your grape, or your apple.
So organic wine is made in the vineyards.
Organic wine is, let's say, 80% made in the vineyards, because what we can use for organic wine is basically what we do in the cellar is, of course, something that has to follow the same philosophy in the vineyard, so no addiction. But I have to say that the largest part of the difference is in the vineyards, because except a few little things in the cellar, what we call conventional wine, well-made conventional wine, not a shitty.
Of course. So we are talking about only good wine.
It's not so different from a natural wine. So the huge big difference is back in the vineyards.
Okay, fantastic. So what about the biodynamic? And then after there is a question already on these two. So I will let Ales talk about it and talk about the biodynamic, and then I will ask the question.
Biodynamic, if you to understand maybe the difference, organic or biodynamic by law or by certification is in one point. In biodynamic way of working in a vineyard, we can use copper and sulfur like in organic way. But we have to use also some preparates which are an obligation. If you to understand better why biodynamic, what is the on the end the point, the meaning, why you do biodynamic instead of organic or bio. With this approach of biodynamic, you help a little bit the vine, because with bio approach, you are really very good for the nature, but the plant needs a little bit of help, I think. This is my personal way.
Of course.
And in that way, with these things which you are doing in biodynamic, you help the plants, especially you help also, of course, to not have a problem then of copper, because on the end you have to have the soil which is clean, without any residual or big quantities of that.
Okay. So, and what about your specific wine? And I will do this question to both Alberto and Ales. Alberto, can you start first? What is your organic wine? How do you it's your experience with the organic wine making and vine growing?
But my experience is the one that every grower has. So it's just that, first of all, you never stop learning. That's the rule number one.
Okay.
And once you start to understand something, maybe the vintage after, you have to reconsider everything from the beginning. So that's probably the most beautiful aspects of farming, and the most important thing you have to remember when you do this kind of job, that you never finish to learn, and you always learn something, and you always have to doubt about something that you consider sure. It's never sure. And then of course is what I consider good for me is not that the wine at the end are more good or better than in the past. Actually, is something that is over that. Is more good for myself. I consider wine better because I feel better in my vineyards. I feel I'm doing something good for the future generations. I've been quite lucky, honestly, to be born in an era which is one of the most beautiful in the world.
I do agree.
And my father heredited some land from his father, and he gave him in a certain condition. He did something to improve it, and my target is to improve it too, in order to give to my daughter, my son, whoever is going to come afterwards, with the same future vision, and always to improve and improve. So what my father learned passed to me, what I'm learning and I'm adding, I'm going to pass to somebody else. So that's,
so we can say that the organic evolution is your personal contribution to the long history of Cordero di Montezemolo Winery.
Maybe we will see. I don't know.
Okay. Oh, you're very young, so you have still a lot to do and learn, and you are already doing a great job. So, and Ales, what about your experience with the biodynamic?
Bravo, Alberto. I want to say that that's the way, because tradition has to be tradition also in 5 generations in future, no? And the point is that if we really believe that I don't know that because in the wine world, in our business, it's not like if you produce, I don't know, t-shirts, and you have 3 generations of tradition. If somebody on the other part of the world will find better material or whatever, he will do better, and that's it. We are speaking about something which you cannot move, and just because of that, we have our roots are here. And I sometimes, I also want to. When I was young, I wanted to travel and so on, but more and more you start to be like a plant there, and because of that, you have to be clean. It's sometimes it's difficult to explain, but I have two children, and they became like me. Even if I wanted that they will go in the world, in a beautiful world, to make another maybe road
experience. Yeah. Okay.
That's it. I want to say also that we have also a certification of working in the cellar, and that's bio certificate, and what it's also important, why? Because in the cellar is something which if you bring from the vineyard really good grape, then it's of course very important to maintain that. But in that process, it's also nice to have a driving license, like and in that way we are responsible for
definitely.
In the sense, yeah.
Okay, I pass you. There are one question which is: would organic or biodynamic viticulture be a requirement for a natural wine? Oh, that's a very good question. So, is organic or biodynamic that makes natural?
Yes, organic or biodynamic, it's of course much better than conventional. Personally, what I'm doing, I believe that is natural. I will not, even one moment, I will stop to do wine now if I will think that I'm not doing natural, because then then it means that I'm a liar. The word wine and natural and true is just one. You say, what, no?
Yeah, clear. Okay. And now, okay, organic, biodynamic, but desert wine. Can you, Lores? Lores, this is supernatural or super unnatural? I don't know. That's a question.
Desert is magic. Magic wine.
Magic wine. Yeah. Can you share your experience?
Desert is a beautiful place and a very beautiful place to grow wine. Historically, I mean, desert is a beautiful wine for wine growing because in the desert, basically, there's no rain, absolutely no rain. No rain means no disease in the plant. No disease in the plant means that you don't need to use pesticide. You don't need to use chemical. You don't need to add anything to your vineyard. And at the end, you don't need to sort grape, because every year the grape are beautiful. There is absolutely zero disease. In me, I have experience in 2 deserts, in Atacama Desert, South America, and now in the Gobi Desert in China. And every year in 15, more or less 15 years experience making wine in the desert, every year grapes are beautiful. So basically, when you have beautiful grape arrive in cellar, you are the winemaker, you are so happy because basically you have to do basically anything to make your wine, because your wine is already there. There's nothing to do to make it better because you have already the best. And that because I choose desert wine, because it's an extreme situation, very extreme, where you can really make something pure. You taste the grape, as I said before, and when you taste the grape after, I don't know, I aged wine for 2 years in barrel, some 3, some 1, depend on the wine. After 2 years, 3 years in barrel, for example, you retaste the grape you tasted 3 years before. I mean, so that's the desert wine.
What's the temperature range in the desert? That now that we're talking about the Puchang Winery, so is in the
meter per year, nothing, really nothing. Is blue sky every day is rain. Look, during harvest, if you are unlucky, can rain for 3, 4, 5 minutes. I'm not kidding.
Okay.
I mean, there's really no rain. Then, of course, desert, I mean, it's not so easy, like, oh, you go there, grape is beautiful, wine will be beautiful. Of course not, because we fight against temperature, high temperature during summer in the Gobi desert. I remember in 2015, I harvest Saperavi. I do some Saperavi there. I harvest Saperavi outside. The temperature was 49 degrees. I mean, so you have to fight.
And on the other side, during the winter, you have very low temperature.
And during winter, basically, is very, very low. Can get down to -20, -25, depending on the winter. And super dry winter, that is not very good for vineyards. So the intervention of human being is physical. A vineyard is unburied. There's a lot of job you have to do in the vineyard to have good grape. But it's not. It's just a physical job. I mean, you have to do. It's not nothing. You don't need a chemical part of winemaking. That's. I'm a chemistry basically. That's strange. But when I arrived there, I said, "Wow! All my knowledge here is for nothing." Basically, but from a chemistry, I became a physician. You know.
Yeah, of course. And during the winter, you have a very strange way to you cover all the vines, right? To protect
depend the desert. For example, in the Gobi desert, you must.
Yeah.
In Atacama desert, it's completely different. You don't have to, because the temperature is not so high, so low. Can get down to -5, -3. Vineyard at that temperature is good. Atacama desert is less dry than Gobi. So winter there's a little rain that in the Gobi is not. So little rain and not very low temperature, the vineyard can survive outside without any problem. The most interesting thing to say about desert, this is 2 deserts in both sides, so North Hemisphere and South Hemisphere, because Atacama is in the south, so harvest is during March. Gobi desert is in the north, harvest during September, October, depend on the year, depend on the weather. But basically, the most interesting thing I found with my experiences is the mountain wine in desert. The mountain vine is the best. In Argentina, the vineyard is at 1,500 meters up on sea level to 2,200. They have vineyard that altitude. In the Gobi, where I'm at the moment working, Puchang Vineyard, we have vineyard at 1,300 meters up on the sea level. That's pretty unusual for the northern hemisphere. In southern hemisphere, you can find more vineyard at that altitude. The northern hemisphere, probably we are on there in the Gobi. We are the highest vineyard in the northern hemisphere. And nor why? Because of the difference in temperature during night and day. High altitude means big difference between day can be 50, for example, night temperature is getting down to 20 or even less, depends. That is very important, because if you plant vineyard in the desert, in the 500, 300, 400 meter up on sea level, the difference in temperature between night and day is not so high. And the climate is very strong. You cannot have your grape, the quality, the polyphenolic maturity of your grape is not very good. But more higher you go, a more polyphenolic maturity you have.
Very interesting. And there is a question which is very interesting to ask you all. But because the question is, what you do in the cellar makes a huge difference. Spontaneous fermentation with indigenous yeast, no filtration, no temperature control, low sulfide, depending on the kind of wine you make. If you do not start with this fixed point, it is impossible to talk about natural wines. Do we all agree at least about that, says Giovanni? But before I pass the question to you, I remember, Ales, you were telling us that you make a kind of experiment with slow wine, right? And so before answering this question, I would like you to share that experience with us.
It was 2000, I think 2002, something like that, in Torino. You know, every year it was a Salone del Gusto, and my let's say my laboratorio was speaking about hunter's wine, you know, the wine which maybe we discovered. And very easy to understand that, I prepared the small bicchierini, the small glasses. And in where was one one berry, yes, with a head up, and it was covered with a net, and of course from the last harvest. That was in November. I bring all the 250 glasses with me, and I divide to the people, and I said, please, hands up who find that wine, and hands up who find that vinegar. The result was maybe a little bit less wine than vinegar, but the point is, we on one way, you have luck because you are working in a desert. This is really, you really can come close to the hunter's wine, to the discovered wine. I believe where in our vineyards we have, like today, we have sunshine and raining. Of course, this is perfect combination. And what we can do, we have to use treatments. But if somebody will tell me that if I using the cooling system in the cellar, and that is not natural wine, I'm not agree with that, because it's not like Tori said before, it's physical, it's not chemistry. I can understand that for each of us, for every person in this world, the difference between natural and not natural could be different. But sometimes it's a little bit too much.
Basically, what you say is that as for your experiment, if you leave the grape alone under certain circumstances, it can turn to wine without the aid of anything. You didn't do anything. You just put the grape
because you have that.
This is from one side. so it's that it can be natural, but from the other side, also, I believe that maybe Alberto, what is you said that 80% of the organic, at least, wine is in the vineyards, and maybe the rest is in the cellar. So, can you respond to Giovanni saying that it depends on the choice of the winemaker in the cellar that makes the natural wine?
Yes, again, doesn't mean that what you do in the cellar can be considered natural or not natural. It's always a decision you have to take, and decisions are based on the final results, on what you wanna finally have.
Yeah.
You wanna be a journalist, you don't need just a paper and a pencil. So to make wine doesn't mean only to have grape and then leave it out its own way. So you have to take decision, and the decision, it's not a recipe. It's not what I say is good for one vintage can be different from next vintage, or what I do in my cellar is different from my neighborhood, which is also a great producer.
Yeah, clear.
Because maybe we start from the beginning with many different aspects and with different kind of interpretation. We don't have to forget that wine is always, that's my point of view, an interpretation of the farmer, of the winemaker. It's always something that is very personal. So I interpret the land as I like, as I want to interpret it. And this is not the only one. It's not the best one. There isn't the best or the worst. It's only a way that you can like or you dislike. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're right.
And so briefly, just to say something about the vinification. At the end, in my opinion, because we have many hectares, we do wine exported with our name all over the world. We want to be sure that we guarantee the quality and a precise taste and recognition into our wines. So that's why we want to adapt all the possible technique in order to achieve these.
No, you're right.
These targets. But again, it doesn't mean that we use chemicals, or we try to be as much as possible not influencing. But when we say that, we already influence. Because if I use oak or not, I already influence the wine. Because I take two decisions. I mean, one decision, use it or not, and this is also how to influence. So at the end, the human being is not disconnected to what we call natural, because
you're right.
Is natural, and wine is part of it.
Yeah, I think that the misunderstanding sometimes is natural, confusing natural with spontaneous, and because sometimes I'm not an expert of natural wine. I have to say that. And when I visited the Lake exhibition, and sometimes people try to explain to me this wine with what I always thought it was a defect, and then they say, this is because it's natural. No, it's not. We are all, here today we are trying to explain nice natural wine. So the wine must be very good to drink, otherwise it doesn't make any sense, in my personal opinion. So for example, Giulio, how can you explain all of this to your consumer?
Yeah, this was the most challenging part for me when I opened About Eatery in Bangkok 4 years ago, because in the past I always worked with conventional wine, and it was easy for me to recommend wine to my customer, but that was difficult, and I need to also study more and read more books and look some video. So, and then I come out with a wine list that was divided in these three categories: so organic, biodynamic, and natural wine. But also I give more information to each wine. So in my wine list, I also give the information of the sulfite, SO2, or the residual sugar, if the wine is vegan, vegetarian. So this was my way to, in somehow, educate the consumer in Bangkok, because it was the first natural wine bar. So I use this approach, and step by step, with education, customer, they can understand the three different, because as you say, it's very complicated for a normal consumer to understand what is mean organic, biodynamic, natural. What is the final taste? So this is a little bit confused. Also, you know, every certification is different. US certification organic is much different than a European certification organic. So it's very complicated for us.
Yeah, that's true.
To somehow do our job.
And
Yes,
how did the market change in the last 4 years? Because you opened 4 years ago, and I believe that the trend of natural wine became stronger and stronger. So the awareness of people.
Yeah, the first year was very difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because, I need to learn how to sell and how to talk with the customer. So because it was something new for me. But then step by step, we have a good result. And most of our customers for natural wine are the young generation.
Yeah.
So they were below 30. What is more interesting, they are more female than male. So,
is that something to do maybe with kind of sensitiveness? I mean, towards nature, towards, you know.
Probably yes, and in fact, also surprise, the most successful wine in my wine bar was the orange wine. That was the skin contact white. So I was afraid in the beginning to put orange wine in the list. I would just put a few, and nowadays I have more than 25.
Oh, really? Okay.
Wow.
It was a good surprise anyway. Yes.
So basically,
I can say something.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Because I know pretty well. I mean, Chinese, Asian culture, Asian food. Orange wine match perfectly any Chinese or Asian food. That's one of the best, one of the most important reasons, that because orange is getting popular in China too, and that's because it matches perfectly.
Agree.
The food.
Oh, okay, fantastic. And no, but it's interesting. Also the age of the consumer, at least in Thailand, because of course you're based there. But it's the younger generation. I believe that Natalie also can kind of outline the consuming general of natural wines in mostly in China, I think. How can you describe the natural wine phenomenon?
I mean, it's hard. I mean, first of all, for people to understand the China's wine market, you have to bear in mind, wine is less than 10% of the drinks beverage consumption. So don't get the grand idea, you know, everyone in China is drinking wine. No, that's not the case. For Baijiu, so always, you know, to emphasize that point, to get realistic how big the market is. As you know, wine journalist in China's wine market, it's hard to get data on exact, you know, how big is the organic or biodynamic or natural wine in China. There's no such data, and you know, the figure that I can get is about the market size for organic produce, which is estimated roughly about 80 billion RMB, which is about 12 billion US dollars by the end of 2024. Yeah. And for the global organic wine market, I think the sales expected to reach about 1 billion bottles by the end of 2023. So that's roughly the market size we're talking. And natural natural wine or organic wine is still a very new and niche market in China. Most of the consumption for this category of wine comes from first tier cities like in Shanghai, in Beijing, in Shenzhen. I don't expect to see people coming from second tier or third tier cities suddenly to drink natural wines. It's something that's gradually growing more in Shanghai in particular. There are quite a lot of natural wine bars dedicated to selling organic and biodynamic wines, because the people living there, they're more affluent, they have more disposable incomes, and they're more interested in drinking wines as well. Yeah, so that's basically the group of consumers we're looking at for organic wines. Yeah, in China. And in Hong Kong, of course, that's a little bit different. Hong Kong is more mature. Wine consumption per capita wise is much higher than mainland China, and already we have a lot of natural wine bars here, pioneered by Recupero, for instance. They've been doing and importing a lot of natural organic wine. And of course, Hong Kong, the wine capital of Asia, we don't have any taxes on wine, which is even more attractive for a lot of producers to come by and sell natural organic wines here.
What about the consumer? What profile of consumer is for natural?
We don't have a profile yet.
Okay.
I'll give you some examples just to
Yes, please.
impressions. I can't generalize this big group of but basically, urbanites living in first-tier cities, metropolitan cities like Shanghai, Beijing, Shenzhen. It's the profile of China's general wine drinkers. Many consist of males, and there's a growing number of females and younger drinkers, particularly with millennials. Who are unconventional, who want to, stand out and be different. And those are more of the new customers coming to organic and natural wine. And also, very interesting to see, there's a company that launched a e-commerce platform that sells just organic, biodynamic, and natural wine.
Okay.
So obviously you can see there's a lot of interest for that category to propel that kind of business development.
Okay, fantastic. I can see from the questions that people really want to know the technicalities of this of your winemaking. So who wants to go a little bit into more details about what is natural in the winemaking? So in the seller side of your activity. So how can you make can define what is natural winemaking? Maybe Ales or Loris or Alberto. Who can?
If Loris, me, whatever.
My opinion on natural winemaking, as I said, is nothing, basically just a little phrase, nothing is added, nothing is taken away from the grape. This is natural winemaking.
Just to be, okay, very,
very straight. What about the lowest intervention of human being in the grape means natural. I mean, if you start using, I don't know, tartaric acid, yeast, lot of sulfite, of tannin. Market is full of chemical product for winemaking. Full. Okay. You have no idea how many products you can find in the market.
Okay, but I pass you there a question from Krishna and says, how do the winemakers feel about noticeable volatile aromas in low, no added sulfur wines? And it is common and consistent with certain natural wine producers that new drinkers are calling it a style they seek out.
What?
I mean,
Well, it's just basically, I think, you know what, I mean, even for me, it's curious because a lot of times when you taste natural wines and it's funky, that's what we say, you know, on the nose, it's funky. And then sometimes it's volatile, has bread or any other characters, but winemakers will be saying, well, this is natural wine, I don't do any intervention. How do you distinguish yourself with these, you know, the marketers out there?
For me,
the winemaker ability to make the wine not funky, not volatile, and make a correct wine without any addiction, basically. And this is an ability, this is experience that you learn on the field with your grape. And
maybe that's the difference is this trend, which maybe the winemakers who doesn't have the proper knowledge of how to master the process of natural winemaking, maybe if to get this funky style, which is not the proper style. So maybe, you know, it's a question of experience of winemaking, I would say.
Let's say that what is a good wine remain a good wine. What is a bad wine remain
exactly.
a bad wine.
We should be, you know,
that's the way you make it. So if you have a high volatile, it means that you did some mistake, not in the last part of your process, but it's just from the beginning. So
exactly.
Sulfites, Loris knows extremely well because he's a chemical. Everything is biochemical. So we talk about not natural chemical, or let's say unorganic chemical, but the chemical is in every day. I'm breathing air right now, oxygen, nitrogen, everything. So everything influence and do something in life. And wine is a natural product, so is change and develop and evolve constantly. If you know what will be potentially the problem tomorrow, I can take the right decision now, yesterday, in order to avoid to reach a certain problem. So volatile, it is maybe it is a problem, of course, can be. If you just don't look at and you don't take the proper decision, but from the beginning, from when you pick the grape, but not only when you pick the grape. Now, which is June, is in flower, already flower, the blooming is already done. You have to start thinking about what can be a potential problem that if you don't take attention now, you have a grape that is already too high in volatile. And of course, when you have a too high volatile, it's impossible to go down if you don't adapt, you know, interventions that are not natural. It's like I always consider a vine like a child. You know, I have a daughter. She's 6 years old. I take every day. I try. Maybe I'm wrong, but I try to teach her every day something little in order that. Maybe when she's gonna be 20, she's gonna be a good woman.
It's exactly like that. It's exactly like that.
But if you just wanna make an intervention when she's gonna be 16 years old and before you don't care about it, of course it's too late and something is impossible to change.
Yeah.
So we have to start thinking about that sulfites, natural yeast, controlled temperature. Those are only one part of many different aspects that you have to think about.
Exactly. You were talking about your daughter that is 6, how she will be when she will 20. So the same thing is for wine. So Ales, what about the aging, the longevity of natural wines? How can you? Can a natural wine age, and what can you say?
Who?
Ales.
Me? Yeah,
yes.
I was a little bit disconnected because of...
Yeah, I saw that.
The question was if the
We're talking about longevity,
Yeah.
longevity of the wine. I think that your wine are.
I think, you know, what we have to close in the bottle. What? Life. Now, do you think that with more or less sulfur will be more or less longevity? Longevity means lunga vita, no? But sulfur and life doesn't go together. The point is, you know, I was hearing before all the talking, you know, I think that the worst thing is that you have voluntary acidity and high sulfur. That's the really, and normally many times it's like that. You know, to have the wine without sulfur doesn't mean that you have short life. No, without sulfur, you are a candidate for really eternal life. You know, it's like we are aging. Why? Because we oxidize simply. But if we take out from the room the oxygen, we will not be alive for forever. We will be just that, you know. And in the world of wine, it's something which we have to believe that from the beginning, if we start in the vineyard, if we start every day, every moment, if we are making more for this sometimes stupid wine than even for our families, then it is a difference on the end, you know. I hope that the people today, they are not drinking natural wine just because it's fancy or whatever. I hope that they drink because their feeling is better. Nobody speaks about that, you know, because now is shikimiki wine. No, if you have good wine on the end, you are flying, you know, you are never, in my culture, we say that you can drink wine, don't drink other beverages when you drive, you know. This means that we don't consider wine that is an alcohol, you know, and really a good wine, it's something completely different. The alcohol is the drop in the ocean, like Alberto said before. It's not important how much is the alcohol. It's important if you feel the alcohol or not. It could be 14 and it's like 0, or it's 10 and it's like 14 and whatever. No, if you don't touch the nature, on the end, she is the best wine maker. You know, she can do what we never do. All the things which you add in the wine, it's like asking glass. Never. The wine could be better if you buy something and you add. It will be too easy, you know. We are speaking, of course, about real wines. Wine is something which has to be like it is on the label. Grapes, and that's it, you know.
You're right. Okay.
Longevity, if I can say something, the longevity also depends on the grape. Merlot, Cabernet, Syrah, blah blah. Different grape has different longevity.
Of course.
This is sure. A different terroir, I believe in terroir. Different terroir can give grape with a different longevity. Nature give different longevity to the grape. Basically,
yes,
wine is alive.
Exactly, and I was speaking just because I didn't hear it. I was thinking that is a question about sulfur and longevity. Of course, that is very important, but 100% more natural means longer life, of course.
That's sure.
Yes, because I had Loris, you had hairs in your life. I had hairs. I am now without hairs, but I'm still not out of expiration date. And that means this is life. You know, we have something in the bottle which is changing, but that means that is alive. That's
exactly.
If we take out the life and we close that is stuck. No?
It's also the most interesting part of our job is making wine, cork the wine, put the wine to the bottle, and then taste after 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and every year is different. And sometimes you're surprised about, wow, that wine is beautiful, it was not so good, or wow, that wine is not so good, it was very good. Why? You cannot change. When you corked, and then the nature and is going to do its course, you know. It's a very interesting part of winemaking.
A great wine, natural wine is more difficult to produce a great conventional wine. Giovanni asks. To make a great natural wine versus make a great conventional wine. Making natural is more difficult.
You ask to who?
Whoever wants to answer. Alberto?
The question is yes.
Yes.
Stop.
Make natural wine is you love nature. You make natural wine is a form of love. It's not a form of business. It's a little business. It's more love than business.
Okay.
I guess if I may ask the last question.
Yeah.
Hopefully Loris is coming back soon. I know, here he is.
Sorry, I was sorry.
I'm just kidding. There are a couple. I mean, it's a technical thing again. It looks like there is a lot of interest into the technicalities, the details, and it's about the indigenous yeast versus the selected yeast. Basically, if it's an issue during the fermentation, if you can get stuck basically using the natural yeast during the fermentation, practically means you cannot complete.
Look, depend on what you do in your vineyard. If your vineyard is clean, I mean, with no pesticide, no herbicide, your grape is clean, get stuck with indigenous yeast is pretty much impossible. Indigenous yeast can I make some wine with 16.5 degrees in alcohol that as Alex said you cannot feel because of aging and blah blah, but I can go up to 17 degrees with indigenous yeast. But why? Because I know the grape, I know vineyard is not, there is no treatment in the vineyard. Of course, if you have a vineyard, you start putting a lot of chemical, pesticide and blah, blah. The indigenous yeast is not so strong because, as commercial yeast. That's the main reason, in my opinion. If you have a stuck fermentation, or you did something wrong during fermentation, I don't know, no air, too many pump over, or I don't know. And but if your grape is sane and clean, very important this word, clean, indigenous yeast can go, never stop. Me, for example, I make some in Gobi Desert. We do some sweet wine, sweet wine with an indigenous grape, and I use indigenous yeast. Stop the fermentation sometimes is crazy, is impossible. Even 17, 18 degrees, the indigenous yeast eat sugar without stopping. Why? Because this is my point of view. This is my experience. Is no pesticide, no chemical, nothing. Clean and sane grape help indigenous yeast to make their job.
So what I understand, because again, I'm not an expert of this segment of the market, and but I'm absolutely attracted by natural wine. I'm amazed by the phenomenon. What I understand is that again, is what you do, is you as a winemaker, is that makes the difference, because there are no excuse. If your wine is not super good, it's not natural. It's just a bad wine. That's it. Exactly. I mean,
sure.
Yeah, because. In all this natural wine tasting, I taste some fantastic, including yours, but some are simply not good. So there is no excuse.
We are wine.
And they can explain, the winemaker can explain with technicalities, which I understand that everybody is interested in. But a good wine is a good wine. Full stop.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, let's, and now we are going long with time, but so let's make a quick tour of the future of natural wine in your personal environment and experience. We start with Giulio.
Yeah, I think for me the future that like in France they start the Vin Method Nature certification for natural wine, and in Italy we have Vin Nature. I think will be more classify, more regulation for natural wine. I think it's good for the consumer, and moreover I would like also to see more information in the label of the wine, because the label of the wine there is nothing. So if you buy some food products, you have a lot of information, but if you buy a bottle of wine, you have nothing. So this is, I think, something could be changed, help also for the consumer.
You're right.
So more information and more natural classification where there is precise rules. It will be good for the future of the natural wine. So this, I believe that this will be the next step.
Wow.
What about you, Ales?
I think that that is very, very good what Giulio said, because we need a law which will be an obligation that everything what is not from the grapes, we need to declare on the label, and not only that this contains sulfites, but how much, and all the things, everything. That will be the real future for wine, because otherwise we are losing wine. And we have, I don't understand also the big guys which are making big numbers. They don't understand that in that way we are all losing. Of course, if you have millions of bottles, you cannot do what I can, because you will never have these hands. I have these hands because I decided to do that, and with my family, 8 generations. But to make this way that the wine is something which is blah blah blah, that is very bad. And if somebody will say to me that you find a very bad wine and it's natural, you understand, sometimes we have also a little bit to be, let's say, patient with that kind of wine producers, because they are trying to do that.
Yeah.
I only don't like if they start to be, if they want to be freaks because of that. That is very bad. But if somebody try, let's give them a chance, because the future, wine has to be natural. If you want that I bring in Hong Kong, not a new label, but a new taste, I have to be natural. Anything with yeast, yeasts are half of wine, half. And yeasts are the really gift if you are a real farmer, because the real farmer will never kill the yeasts, and you harvest them. And they are much more indigenous than the variety is, because they are living there for millions, maybe, of years. The variety we planted, we decide which kind of indigenous is that. You understand?
Yeah. And Alberto?
Yes, I agree with both of you. Probably in future what we need is a kind of more precise regulation. We noticed that today, that there still be a lot of confusion, and probably in order to be correct versus the consumers, and also to have a right competition between the producers, it's very important that if you practice something and you declare something, you have a kind of criteria and a kind of regulation and certification that tell you that you can write something. We have right here on our label Barolo. You cannot put Barolo if you are here in the area and you live in these hills. You have to respect some rules. You have to respect the rules that everybody respects. If you are like that, you can put the name Barolo on the label. What I noticed is that on organic, biodynamic and natural wine, because it's very trendy, people start to say everything, but no one, very few actually are the one that really welcome people to investigate and to see if they are doing actually what they are saying. And this is probably something that really bothered me a lot, honestly. And that's why we started to make a certification, because I don't want to say I make organic wine because it's cool, because I like it. Yes, I like it, of course, but I want also to guarantee, compared to my competitors versus the consumer, that what they do is something that it's real. There are analyses, there are people that come here, there is outside people that certificate something. On natural wine, we still have to make a lot of steps.
Yeah, you're right. Also, because we have to take it, we have to take into consideration that, like every business, because all of us are doing business with wine, the most important stakeholder is the consumer. So we have responsibility towards the consumer, and we need to be serious to him. So it's important that we follow the rules, we declare what we do, and you declare, because you are the one that really makes it. And I believe that the future of natural wine should be like that. And let's not hide behind it's natural, so if it's not so good, it's because it's natural. And what about Natalie? Considering the numbers, what do you think is going to be the future of natural wine? Very quickly.
To be honest, I think there's a huge market for organic, biodynamic, and natural wines in China, because the problem is, people are very conscious of food safety. And we, in the past, we had quite a few scandals related to food security, safety. And people really now, especially with the pandemic, people pay attention to what they eat, very conscious, very aware of the chemicals put into it. So I think definitely it's a huge market out there for China.
And also the local producer in China, because not only Puchang, also other producers are doing some kind of a natural. Last week together we also had Emma Gao from Silhate, and they're producing.
Because the government, especially in Xinjiang and Ningxia, in northwestern part of China, they're really pushing for organic, biodynamic farming. So in Yanqi, for instance, in Xinjiang, the whole region is used as a model region to promote organic farming, vegetable winemaking. So there's a conscious push from the government to grow organic. Like I said, health is really a main concern for a lot of people drinking wine.
No, you're right. Yeah, good. So it's gonna be a huge opportunity. That's for sure. Now let's talking about business. Okay, fantastic. I believe that there are a lot of other topics that we would love to talk about, but I think that for the moment we tried, and I think that we somehow succeed to shed light on this topic. And I really want to thank you all, the panelists, because they brought in some very unique experiences in a different way from the challenge of the trade with Giulio, or with the tradition in the family, like Alberto, or this desert for Loris, or Alex could have a very also long story to talk about. He shared some parts with us the other day, and it's fantastic. So behind natural wine should be a person, and the wine reflects this person. In this case, we have Loris, we have Alberto, we have Ales. Thank you all for what you're doing, because I really appreciate your job. Thank you for thanks again for being here. Thank you, Natalie, for your insight, which are always useful. And thank all the attendees that there are a lot of people. So I think that it's a really trend topic. Thank you, everybody, and see you next time.
Thank you, guys. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers to everybody.
Ciao, thank you.
Ciao.